we have a little cat. Whatever. What's the name of the cat, Kate?
Panda.
Panda. This is Born to Ferment, the podcast based on fermentation. My name is Massi Mozzitti, co-owner and bartender of Mother Cocktail Bar, and today we got Kate Dingwall. Kate, the first lady ever that came on this podcast. Welcome, and I got to say, it's for me a pleasure and an honor to have you. Especially, thank you so much. 10 o'clock in the morning. I know it's not very early, but at the same time, I know you're super busy. So thanks for this half an hour, 45 minutes of dedication for this little chat, really, about fermentation, of course, but also about yourself. We've been working together for quite a while. Well, working together. Obviously, I make drinks, and you write about drinks. So there's a kind of a strong connection there. And this is this. I don't need to say publicly on the podcast for sure. And also, you were really into fermentation. You just finished. Well, the last thing that we did together was an amazing article about kombucha.
Mm-hmm.
So, why are you? When did you start writing, and how did you get into fermentation as a writer? Also, there's a personal question. How did you get into cocktail writing? Because that's fascinating too, I guess.
I kind of fell into it naturally. I started out in fashion. This is probably almost a decade ago, working at fashion magazines. I kind of loved it, but I always, all through college, all through my undergrad, all through my master's, I bartended and worked as a sommelier to kind of pay for school. College is expensive.
Nice.
So I've been kind of working in that field, like bartending on the side since I was 16 years old. So that's always been something I love.
Always in Canada?
It always, Canada and the US.
Canada and US. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So before it was legal, I was even bartending as a summer gig at a hotel. Like, it's something I've always done, and it's something I love doing.
Of course.
So after I kind of started writing full time in fashion.
Did you go to school for writing? Because I write songs. And it's so funny because you do this for a living. I write for really just for pleasure, really. But I'm constantly writing about poetry and songs and stuff. And it's so fascinating how you can put words together and actually make a living out of it. Like, for me, it's a dream.
My high school English teacher would never expect me to be a writer. I hated English in high school. I was so bad at it. I didn't pay attention. I didn't go to class. But my undergrad was kind of like a miscellaneous Bachelor of Arts. Like, I did some art history. I did some painting classes. I did some architecture classes. So kind of just getting through.
Of course. What's the first article that you wrote about drinks? Can you tell me that?
This was years later.
Do you remember?
It was about the history of Prohibition in Georgia.
Yes. Speaking like Georgia. That Georgia in my mind. Amazing. How did you start? You started from did you get from the work? You were working in a bar and you start writing about something, or it was actually much more planned as a kind of situation?
I kind of fell into it. I had been working in fashion for years, but my editors knew me really well, and they knew I loved drinks. I loved wine. I loved cocktails. It was something I was really excited about, but I thought it was just kind of something I did in my free time. Amazing. So I was dating a bartender. I bartended on the side because Lord knows writing did not pay that well at that level. But
of course,
no, I just started picking up more and more articles and getting really nerdy about it. I started digging into the Gaz Regan books and getting more into wine as well, and digging into the actual history of drinks, and that I was just obsessed with it.
Absolutely. As a bartender, I tell you, I did exactly the same. It's not just about your drinks, your flavor composition, your garnish, which is obviously a beautiful aspect of it. But there's also the curiosity of know where the history comes from, who did that before you, and how some of those people like Jerry Thomas became so popular when there were no books around. When there was no record, when nobody was writing about them. They had to write. They had to write for themselves, or they had to come out with a book with some recipes there and some kind of philosophy. You've been drinking in many bars, I guess, right?
I've drank my fair share. For my work, I travel a lot. Well, used to travel a lot too. So I'd always make sure to kind of check out whatever bar people would recommend for the city I was in.
So, what are you looking when you go to the bar? What are your first kind of things that you think about it when you actually go in and sit down? But in mind, one second, I gotta say that you are the first ever person to sit down at Mother Cocktail Bar.
I was the first
I
ever.
totally forgot about this. So
That.
Kay came the day of the opening, and I didn't know you were a cocktail writer. If you remember, I don't remember, but it was amazing because you just sit down on the bar and order the Negroni, and and you were the first. And after you told me like I write for cocktail magazines, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. You are the first customer that walk inside these doors. They also order Negroni, so you got my full respect in that, by the way. Because a lady that walk into the bar for the first time and order Negroni means that she knows what she's drinking. So again, what are you looking? What's the aspect that you're looking into bars? When you go to bars, do you looking for decos or you go more for the service?
Usually hospitality is the first thing. Like, do I feel welcome? Are they going through, like, am I getting a menu as soon as I get in? Are people chatting with me? A lot of the times too, because I'm a lady, people make assumptions about what I want to drink. Like, do they try and give me a Cosmo? Or I'm like, I'm a big Scotch person. Like, I want something spirit forward, man. Don't try and make me drink a Cosmo.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because when I started bartending, it was 20 years ago. There was like this kind of distinction was so big, girls drinking mojitos and cosmopolitan, and guys that will drink old fashioned and Manhattan. In the last 10 years, all this is totally changed. A, because I believe bars they're becoming a bit more popular on crafting the cocktails, but B, because actually many girls and ladies they actually understood that those spirit forward drinks are pretty awesome, right? So like why shall I go fruity? By the way, you touched the cosmopolitan. I'm actually a huge lover of cosmopolitan because a good cosmopolitan well executed is actually a really good drink. It's more than anything is the color, and also it's kind of labeling a certain drinkers, right? Because when you speak about cosmopolitan, you're probably thinking about ladies with a big dress.
Sex in the City.
Exactly. Which actually is totally wrong because a good cosmopolitan, it's a great drink and it's pretty strong, to be honest. So,
but so many people make bad cosmopolitans.
Oh, for sure.
Like I would trust you to make me a cosmopolitan, and Rob at Crybaby makes an awesome cosmopolitan.
Exactly. I didn't have that one, but at the same time, I believe one of the biggest mistakes the cosmopolitan makers do is the cranberry juice. They get crazy with it. They go like 2 ounces, 3 ounces, and they also need to fill this big margarita glasses, right? But to be honest, all this is changing. There are so many good bars out there, which is amazing. If I would say just to put me on your head, what's your 5 top world's bar? If I can just ask. Take your time. You don't need to obviously answer me in a second, but I'm sure you've been drinking in many of those. Top 50, not top 50, doesn't matter. Even sometimes I'm really like that about cocktail bars. Sometimes it's not because it's in top 50. It's the best bar in the world in my heart, or for me. Like sometimes I go to places that I thought they wouldn't be the best ever. But they're actually okay, or vice versa. I go to a bar, there's a trash bar, but the service is amazing. The actually bartender knows what he's doing, and the drinks are great. So,
exactly. There's some of my favorite bars are like dive bars. Probably my all-time favorite cocktail bar is Katana Kitten in New York. It's
very good,
so fantastic. Massi is a genius. It's so much fun.
You're right.
You have a very good time, and the cocktails are delicious, which is just like the perfect balance there.
Yep. And Europe? Do you drink in Europe sometimes? Have you had some good ones in Europe?
I've had drinks in London, but they were expensive. Like the Artesian Bar Martini rocks.
Yeah.
Like you can't beat that. That's a classic.
Yeah.
New Orleans too has lots of great bars that I really love.
I've seen, for instance, I don't know, my one of my 2 favorite cities are actually London and Paris. And to be honest, even Barcelona now is becoming really good. When I used to live in Barcelona, the drink culture was still pretty behind. When now, for instance, there's some great place. Simone Caporale just opened this place called Sips, and I can't wait to be able to travel again, or to to open the bar first and have some reason to leave the country, and go and so check out those places. But anyway, so fermentation. How did you get into fermentation? You've been writing about fermentation. What did you learn, and how is your experience with why you are born to ferment, Kate? Like, this is,
Nice podcast plug.
this
I love
is the big question.
it. That's a good question. I guess I was talking about earlier how I've just always been really into the history of drinks. And if you go back in wine and cocktails, so much of it is based around fermentation, like wine, early fermentation in Georgia, like what, 20,000 years ago, all began in like by fermenting grapes in amphoras under the ground. And like, if we're dealing with spirits, there's so many interesting tales of like fermenting weird amaros as like medicinal, like stomach remedies, and fermenting bitters and all these other kind of odd things that they just did. And that wasn't always for drinking. It was sometimes like a medicinal thing or a digestif. And there's just so much history, and it's so much of drink culture is rooted in fermentation.
Absolutely. I would say that, especially in the last 3-4 years, has becoming such a huge thing for both industries, like for both bars and restaurants. Probably restaurants started, but either you're more in touch with bartenders and obviously cocktail makers, you can probably say that too, that it's like lots of bars now, they have a very strong fermentation program. First and foremost, I would say that it's actually very sustainable, so it makes us feel really good. But also, which is another main thing, is like this transformation of flavors, which bartenders love so much, and chef love so much. When you wrote the article about kombucha, did you go, and I've seen that you went from empirical spirits. You spoke with a lot of different people, right? What did you get? What did you get? What was probably the biggest thing that you get from all those people speaking about how to make kombucha, or how to kind of flavor kombucha?
I think the biggest thing that I saw as a trend with that kombucha article that I wrote for liquor.com is kombucha really gives you the opportunity to completely turn your bar program on your head. Like, you have all these opportunities to flavor your spirits in different ways and integrate like really beautiful nuanced flavors into kombucha, which can completely turn classic cocktails on its head. Like what you kind of do with those pina colada flavors, etc. Like, you're blowing traditional cocktails out of the water. Like, it gives you a whole new arsenal of flavors to work with.
I have a like to make kombucha weekly, so we make around now 16 liters a week, which is not too much, but for a closed cocktail bar, it's not that bad, And it's so funny because you never really stop learning about this stuff. It's like every week there's something new. Have you ever experienced, for instance, water kefir, all this kind of other grains that comes with it, or for instance, any cocktail that you remember that will imbibe fermentation and you just went, wow, that's so good?
I think you were probably one of the people who got me really into fermentation. As I've come by Mother probably over a dozen times, and every time you kind of tootle out to the front of the bar with all these different glasses of things you're making, and they're all which like reflect the season so well, which I think that also is a big trend and big shift in the drinks world, as people are slowly starting to embrace on a wide scale seasonality and working with more local ingredients, especially kind of in the face of climate change and like a world crisis. That's an essential thing to do. And processes like making water kefir and kombucha are beautiful ways to do that. Absolutely.
I was speaking actually with Flavio Sasso last episode number 6, because this is only the episode number 7, by the way. Just to let you know, I'm starting like 7 weeks ago with this amazing journey about speaking to people that love the same thing that I loved, which is it really makes me learning so much, and I will never say thanks enough. But anyway, so I was speaking with Flavio Sasso, and as asking where this fermentation world will go. And it's so funny because on his eyes, this is just really the begin. And it begins with us because we touching and playing with food and ingredients and flavor daily. But I do really believe, and I don't know if you agree with me, I do think that this could become very popular, the world has been suffering for the last year or two. The health issues are huge everywhere, right? I would say more than US and Canada. Canada the less, to be honest. Surely less in certain countries in Europe because of the way that we've been eating and the way that we've been kind of masterizing mass production, which is not as crazy. For instance, I'm speaking for myself, but being Italian, which still my mom, that she's only 17 years older than me. She always go to the market. She doesn't go to the supermarket. Supermarket in some certain zone of Italy is still a very an American thing. But and tell me if you agree. But I do think that this is changing. A lot of people are getting into home fermentation. A lot of people are getting very careful about what they're eating and where they get it from, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. And something that kind of echoes this shift is, how hard seltzers were really big, well, still are really big. As you're seeing now, like people releasing hard kombuchas, like major brands are trying to do that, which means people are really interested in this, and not just like people like you and me who are really geeky about it. Like it's really spreading.
I've seen, for instance, kombucha's company. There's I always say that I will start my own company one day of kombucha when I go some time. The reason why I want to do that is because really you want to spread the kind of health program in there, because this some of the kombucha, I gotta say that the super carbonated, which is if you make kombucha yourself, you probably understand that that's really probably as forced carbonation instead of natural fermentation. But at the same time, there are so many brands out there, and it seems like that this is growing so much. I'm really water kefir is one of those things that I'm always asking myself why this is not so popular. It's delicious. But actually, Flavio last week he answered to me, and he said because it's you got to cultivate it, and obviously big mass production places like supermarket will be very hard to buy it, just because the actually shelf life, it's very, very low. So another little question about writing. When you're writing about an article, what's your aspect? Well, like how do you approach a writing? This is like, I'll be upset of fermentation, but I'm very curious about this thing. So I'm just going to ask you also, for all the people that are listening, if they want to start writing, because I believe, a lot of bartenders, I can see now a lot of people that are becoming, influencers, bloggers. So what are I would say 3 to 5 kind of tips if you start writing about drinks, I'm talking, eh?
I think just be very knowledgeable about your subject. And if you're not knowledgeable about it, have people who are. So I know a bit about fermentation, but for that article, I knew I needed to get you on board. I needed to get some of these other folks on board. Like, be an expert in that category or have access to experts. I see so many drinks articles these days, and folks who are kind of getting into the drink space who I read the article, I'm like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. So just kind of get your facts right, do your homework, get some Jerry Thomas book, get some Gaz Regan, Robert Simonson. Like I can list off Dave Wondrich books.
Dave Wondrich is probably my favorite. My big favorite. Punch changed the way that I saw the industry in general. I thought you really see that you have roots, because you never think that before the World Cocktail there would be something before, but actually before it was all about punches. Cocktail was not even a word. So funny. I'll let you do. So that's the first. Knowledge is probably the first. Second is like, what you're writing about, kind of everything. When you read an article, what's really gets you into, you go, wow, this is a good article. This is well written.
A lot of that is the actual kind of writing skill. Like, do you have a really interesting, like, first 3 sentences that hooks the reader in? And from there, you got to kind of keep them entertained. So we kind of call that the lead, LEDE. That's like the first, right off the bat, is this article interesting? What's different about this article? Has it been written before? Why are you the person to write it? Like, have an angle and be really strong in that.
It's so funny because this is so similar to songwriting. Because when you write a song, your first line is the line. It's not just about the chorus, which could be something. Also, the first line is the line that will keep the attention of people to listen the actual rest of the song. And I believe it's so connected. Also in a book, I've read. I'm a big reader. I don't watch so much television, and other YouTube. I watch a bit more YouTube than before. But first and foremost, I'm a reader, and I love reading more than anything. And sometimes it's so funny because you get in the book, and the first 10 pages are so good that you just want to read them all. And I believe it's probably the same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
What's the spirit that you most like to write about it?
That's a tough question. I love whiskey and Scotch, but there are so many people. There are so many Scotch bloggers. There are so many folks who are obsessed with whiskey, Instagrammers. Like, there's tons out there. So I think I realized early on in writing, I'm like, I can't touch the whiskey. There are people who are insanely geeky about it, who can list off every bottle from every producer. So I'm not touching that. So I've kind of been really into gin. Gin's a big one for me. It's just like a beautiful, you think it's such a small category, but there's so many different New World, Juniper Forward, Old Tom gins, Genevers. It's a really weirdly diverse category.
When you make drinks, it's so different because you fell in love for everything. It's impossible to say, which one. A lot of people say, what's your favorite thing? And I'm like, there's no favorite thing. The favorite is good and bad, there's a good things and bad things. When it's good is my favorite. When it's bad, obviously, you're trying to avoid it. I would say gin. And in Canada, gin, it's not. I'm coming from UK, so in UK, you have the gin. Everybody drinks gin. It's such a big, huge, popular thing. Here in Canada, it's growing, but for instance, there's no gin bar. There's no something that a cocktail list full of gins. You see much more tequila, for instance, than saying in UK. What do you think about the gin consumption of Canadians? Do you think it's growing? Do you think there's some new brands out there that can probably make the difference?
I think it's growing. It's definitely, I think no one will ever be on the level that the UK is with gin, because that's just, it's where gin really took off. That's where the gin craze happened. Canada is getting there. I think one of the issues with Canada and the US for gin is a lot of the gin producers in North America are whiskey producers who are just making gin while their whiskey ages. So that's a really popular process for a new whiskey distillery. While you have to wait the 4 years for your whiskey to age.
Business.
Yeah. And it's half the time the gin is fine. It's not exciting. There are some really exciting Canadian producers making gin. Sheringham has a really beautiful seaweed gin. I like Willibald's honey out in Guelph. They have a beautiful honey infused gins and barrel aged gins that are fun, really exciting. But for the most part, a lot of the gin producers, they're just fine. They're just waiting to make whiskey.
What's your favorite gin?
Ooh, that's a good question. My favorite gin ever. I don't know. I don't think I could name a favorite. I had Bimini down in Maine. They make a coconut fat wash gin, which I tried recently and really, really liked. It's just weird and interesting.
Yeah, because it's sweet, right? It goes on the sweet side, I guess.
Ish. It's just got that lovely, fresh coconut undertones, but it still does have that juniper to kind of ground it and give it that gin profile. It's been really fun in cocktails too. Yeah. So I've been really enjoying that.
I'll say, for instance, my personal preference is on certain type of cocktail like fizzes, Collins. I always like dry. I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan. There are some good floral gin out there. I would say, for instance, Halovaris. It's probably one of my favorite because it's a fine liquid. Again, we're talking about good and bad. But many gin nowadays is so floral, right? And looks like, again, we're doing this category. Let's sell it to the girls, and let's make it floral. When actually, a good balanced London dry maybe sells much more to girls, just because it's it's much more on point and it's got a bitterness that it needs it. Do you eat a lot of fermented food, or do you drink a lot of fermented drinks? Is that something that you would like to be part of your daily life, or you probably suggest to everybody?
I drink a boatload of kombucha. Just
Nice.
my stomach has always been a little iffy, so for the sake of gut health, I do eat a lot of or drink a lot of kombucha.
Very
A lot
nice.
of fermented food as well. A lot of
Really.
like banchan and just like really nice little like kimchis and stuff as a snack.
Do you make anything on your own? Do you make yourself?
My dad makes some.
Which I
Actually,
met your dad. Your dad is super cool, by the way.
you've
Just want
met
to
my
say,
dad.
I want to
Yeah,
say this publicly. It's amazing. Um,
yeah,
you
he
lo-
loves making anything kind of kimchi, pickles, etc. So he's really into that.
Amazing. I would say, all these little things that really help your daily routine. I always say my kind of my case of study, being a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and obviously I train 4 to 5 times a week. Really, I can't take weight, and I need to be kind of careful because sometimes I do competition on fighting, and I always say, and I say it to all my jiu-jitsu friends, diets are crazy, but if you actually understand how your body works and how to feed your body, you don't need to go on crazy, don't eat for 6 days and or live in water for 3 days every month just to lose weight, or do a crazy amount of sport, especially when I'm over 30, so I can't do a crazy amount of sport. I always need to keep I need to work clever, and also consumption of those things daily actually makes a huge difference. Are you working on a new article? Are you working on some new stuff? What's the future of Okay? Also, because you're probably going to write some article about closed bars, and those are probably those one that suck, right?
Yeah, those are tough. I
I
try
would
not to
imagine.
those just because, like, in this kind of future we're going into, the definition of a bar is changing. Like, there are people who are selling out of their home. Like, I have some good family friends who sell cocktails out of their home now, and they're making a great run of it too.
Yeah.
And there are people doing, I think there's a pop-up truck with cocktails. I saw that briefly on Instagram. I can't remember who is doing it, but
I
now
didn't even see it.
yeah, I think it's around it's probably around your area. They have like a little truck of something, or
That's
like
amazing.
a bike push cart.
Okay, I will dig into this. I never heard about it, so I just probably know someone from any bars, or maybe I don't know. I don't know if it's a brand. We're doing this A74 barbecue, which is becoming pretty popular. It's actually saving us, economically speaking.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so writing and let's probably talk about this because you're probably on the same page. The last 2 years totally changed the way to think. How do I open a bar? What do I do? And what's the newest thing? And
Mhm.
I really do believe that nowadays, if I will open another bar, all the aspect of takeout has to be so nailed as much as my customer service of my quality product. Do you agree with that? Do you think bars will actually in the future? Do you think bars will open in a different way?
I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I don't quite know how that looks. I know personally, like some of my friends are like, I don't want to pay for an $18 cocktail unless it's something I absolutely can't make at home. We've had so many home drinkers kind of learn to make their own cocktails over the last year that I feel bartenders are going to have to really step up their game to bring people back. And I'm sure
Yep.
that's not a problem for you because so help me God, I can't make your cocktails at home, but
Well, that's it's called knowledge. I'm joking. Well, I back you up immediately with this because I've been today, for instance, I got another 47 people class. I have around 100 and between 100 to even more people every 2 weeks. And we teaching, and I also have my own group of 13 people that we do courses for the last 2 months, and we do once every 2 weeks. We do a little tiki classic, classic in general. Now we're going to do Dick Brassel. This is the next one. We did the Importance of Balance, which was a course I used to do back in UK when I was writing 7 bars. And my biggest focus is to teach them how when you go back to bars, you really need to understand if this is good or not. What's the new good. And as you said, a lot of people that've been at home for the last year or two, now they're actually going into home cocktail making, which is actually, and if you can probably remember this, was something that lots of brands were pushing like crazy 4 or 5 years ago, but it was not a thing, right? Because why do I stay at home and make myself a drink when I can just go to my favorite bar And yes, it's going to cost me a bit more, but at the same time, it's a night out and it's a pleasure. And if I want to make my drink home, is really me getting to this because nobody else is doing it. But now things are totally different, right?
Mm-hmm. I think I have some friends in New York who were kind of saying the other day, they're like, oh my God, we went out for the first time because bars are now fully open there. And they're like, I forgot how expensive it was. I got 4 drinks. I spent over $100. Like I could have bought a full bar of ingredients for that price. Well, maybe a full bar, but enough for like a very, very good night.
I do have an answer on that. And this is an advice to my own bar and to everybody else bar. Basically, you need to put up your game. And you need to make drinks that nobody can make at home, or if they want to make it, yes, you can make it. It's going to take you a week. It's going to take, you need to do several steps to achieve the flavor profile, and there obviously will put probably people a bit down on homemade cocktail and still go out. But I do think also, and this is tell me if you agree with me, the value of consumers actually going out and drinking, it will obviously increase because they know now how expensive could be to make an espresso martini, for instance, on an old fashioned. So if you get charged $19 for it, you would probably think, wait a minute, if I'm buying a bottle of bourbon or rye for $45 and I can make, I don't know, 12, I don't know how many drinks, 24 drinks, 12 drinks, how is possible this has cost me $18 if it's average?
Exactly. I know how much espresso costs. I know how, etc. I also do think that people are going to be really excited to support their local bars, though. Like, we know how tough it's been for everyone the last year. I'm super excited to go back to all my favorite spots and throw money at you guys.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm not going to a keg anytime soon. Like, I don't think I'll ever go to one of those massive, like, chain restaurants.
Yeah, that's true.
I would support like local. I think that's that we've really nailed that down over the last year too.
I tell you, as a business owner, sometimes I'm more sorry for these big chains than a small local cocktail bars, because actually in the last year there's been so much attention on small businesses, and I tell you also it's totally right, because I've been living there on my first kid, so it is still now. It's crazy tough because you just open. Well, at least in our case, was insane because we closed after 12 months. So it was like, oh my God, this is crazy. But I got to say that there's been a lot of people supporting us and as many other small businesses, which is amazing. You eat bread, right?
I eat bread. Yeah.
Yeah. You like sourdough? You into sourdough? You make bread? Is that something?
I'm a terrible bread maker.
Okay.
Terrible.
That's happened to everybody when they start to make bread. I'm trying to influencing, especially some very, very good customers from the bar. I'm really in touch. Like, oh man, take the sourdough starter and make some bread. And he or she go back and to me and say, oh man, it was a failure. It's like it's not as easy. But once you know the recipe, you understand your timing. It's amazing. So that's why I've asked. Any other products that you think that will come out that you into it, spirit wise, fermented wise, or anything that in the world of fermentation through your writings that is going to come out to Canada or be on the market that you're really interested?
I'm seeing a lot of major U.S. brands like the Molson Coors, the kind of Anheuser-Busch, start to launch their own hard kombucha brands. Molson Coors just announced they're opening a $200 million facility in Toronto to make more canned drinks. So hard seltzers, canned cocktails. So we're going to be seeing a lot of canned stuff coming out from the big boys. A lot of those I think will be hard kombuchas too, which I'm interested about because I don't think a lot of people there understand it.
Yeah, true. I got to say that, I'm a huge kombucha lover and I'm trying to push this kombucha, kind of fashion, I'll say, to everybody. But most of the people don't like it. It's like, it's one and, converting them will be probably the hardest bit. I also seen the oldest people are probably those ones that love Coca-Cola, they love Pepsi, they love lemonade, all this kind of very sweet things. So of course for them, it's like drinking vinegar when actually it's, just the low sugar and obviously the acetic acid coming through. That's a huge difference. what are you working on? What's the new article? Are you working on any articles there I should know about it? And
I write about 10 articles a week, so there's lots going on.
what's the most interesting at the moment? Are you writing anything about the reopening, or at least in Canada here?
Not quite, because it's so up in the air right now. Because we do have to hit that 70% vaccinated threshold, and we don't really know what that's going to be. And it's kind of, with the things moving so quickly, it's kind of hard to do that. Oh, I am writing a big sustainable beer piece, which I'm very excited about.
Beautiful.
For a major newspaper, which is really fun for me because I love sustainability and I love anything that kind of supports that agenda. But it's the first time a newspaper has let me write it.
That's amazing.
I've asked in the
Sustainable in drinks world, or like how things are wasted or how things are used, or how things they should and not be, because I'm into sustainability like crazy. And I love, it's just me, sometimes when people say, oh, your program should be sustainable, I don't think we should even think about it. I think exactly why we're making it a thing. Oh, you are sustainable. It's just a way to be. What are the biggest, like what this article is about? It's about like not wasting food, or actually where the food goes after it's wasted.
It's about sustainable brewing. So beer is one of the most like unsustainable processes. For every gallon of beer, you have to waste 7 gallons of water. There's like a huge refuse product, like the amount of refuse created by the process is massive. So I'm writing about kind of that big shift in breweries to take a little bit more responsibility for their actions and adopt more sustainable practices, which is awesome. But it's really cool. I've been asking my editor to write this story for ages, and he keeps being like, no, like, I don't think readers are interested in sustainability.
I think they are.
Well, they are apparently. So this was a big moment for me that kind of more mainstream people are being like, wow, sustainability is something really important, and it's something that we need to talk about.
Absolutely. I'm actually want to open in my new bar. It will be all about sustainability. It was like really, this Matt Wiley just opened in Sydney. I don't know if you heard about it, but you should really take a look. Matt Wiley is one of the geniuses of our industry. Has been ahead of time for a very long time. He's the guy that behind Scout. Great friend of mine. Love the guy. And he opened just this place called Re.
Oh, interesting.
And it's amazing. Like, tables are made from all recycled stuff. The actual glasses are made all from recycled, so they don't look as fancy as we want to look at. But the drinks are delicious for sure, because the guy it's really good on this stuff. And also, the actual place is basically a sustainable bubble, which hopefully will influence many, 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 many other bars. Because we need that. And actually, this is a story of I was working in another restaurant here in Canada. I won't say the name, even if I should, just because it was terrible for sustainability. Huge restaurant, very big, 500 seat and all this kind of things. And I worked there between point of finish to work for a bar chef, and I was opening my own bar. And basically, every time a server or bartender was making a mistake, I was saying, you ordered 3 pizza, you made a mistake, you had to throw away in the garbage all the you just made food.
Oh no!
And you just go like, I understand, because I asked the managers like, how this is possible, and they were like, no, because a lot of servers, they were actually taking advantage of it and order food for themselves and put as a mistake. And I was like, look, I totally agree with you that the food should be removed by the servers, but I'm sure there's another way than just throwing it in a bin.
Or donating it, or...
I don't know, but like, find another way. Like, why do you need to call the manager and the manager need to throw the food in front of you when sometimes, I'm talking about 4 or 5 pizzas and all this kind of thing. It's crazy. And unfortunately, this place is a chain, and there's another 9, 10 just in Canada. And, and think about that 9, 10 times daily. So those are all things that we should so dig into this. And, I know that the industry has been fighting against this for decades. But I think, especially after the last year or the last 2 years, we should really dig into this and trying to find a solution. I'm sure that everybody feels a bit more, it's got a much more empathy from, I don't know, at least me, I've been, in the last year, I've been supported so much. When I couldn't give support, I could just work hard and make the product, make something, make it better. That, my empathy kind of grown so much. Question: Did this 2 years change your writing? Do you write in a different way? Do you write are you more conscious about health? Are you more conscious about the words that you're using?
I'm a lot more conscious about who I write about. So when I was first starting in drinks, I was happy to write about whoever was trendy or whoever was people were talking about. But now I'm kind of taking a look back and like, am I writing about people who are actually changing and people who are the future of this industry, changing it for the better? Am I writing about a diverse number of people, or am I just writing about the same famous white bartender or a big chain restaurant that has a big PR team who sends me things?
Exactly.
So
what
I
do you like?
Conscious about that and making sure, like, if I have the platform to write about cool people, I'm writing about people who deserve it.
Absolutely, and those are the best writers. It's like a novel writer that he wrote about his own story, but at the same time he puts a lot of deep things into it because he wants the story to not just shine but touch the heart of people. Kate, it's been absolutely a pleasure. You are beautiful. You are the first ever girl guest on my podcast, so I will remember that forever. Thank you so much for your time. Really, I know you're very busy writing many articles. By the way, if you guys out there that never wrote any article, go to Ligo.com. Kate wrote some incredible articles. The best one was probably the one about kombucha. I loved it so much.
Thank
really,
you.
I gotta say, because sometimes people just writing facts, and when you go online, you see, like the fermentation, and it's all facts. Which the facts are great, but at the same time, if you don't put your own soul into facts, they don't stick, right?
It's a bit boring.
Exactly. Can't wait to see you at the bar. Can't wait to see you around. Thanks again. Okay. Have a great day. Take care.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.